Alright, in today's video, we're going to be talking about how every single team can make the playoffs in NFL Season 2, and let's just get right into it. Alright, so these are the teams that have already been eliminated from the playoffs. I mean, a few surprises here, like the Niners, but yeah, those teams are gone. Before we start, I'm going to show you the Week 5 schedule real quick, just so you guys know who's playing who. And we'll just go team by team and see if they can make the playoffs. Let's go. Alright, starting off, we got the Seattle Seahawks, who have clinched a playoff berth, but they can clinch their division if they get a plus win over the Cardinals. And let me explain that real quick. Basically, what a plus win is, say the Browns and Steelers are fighting for the last playoff spot. If both two teams win their final game of the season, whoever beat their opponent by more points will be getting that playoff spot. Or if one team wins and one team loses, the winning team will get the playoff spot. And finally, if both teams lose, the team that lost by the least amount of points will get the playoff spot. So basically, in the case of the Seahawks, if they beat the Dolphins and the Cardinals also beat the Jaguars, whichever team beat their opponent by more points will be winning the division. But, I mean, the Seahawks are already in, so let's go to the Cardinals. The Cardinals are in the same predicament as the Seahawks, 4-0. Making the playoffs no matter what, but I mean, they have to win a plus-win game against the Jaguars over the Seahawks to win the division. So one of those teams will be winning the division. The other one will be probably the 5th seed in the playoffs. The Rams are also in a good spot for the playoffs. All they have to do is beat the pretty bad Patriots, and I mean, they're in. But they can also win the division if the Cardinals and Seahawks both lose their final games. The Packers already clinched their division, so they're in. Okay, so the Giants are in a predicament. They can clinch the division with a plus win versus the Jets, obviously battling the division spot with the Commanders. Or if they just beat the Jets at all, I mean, they're in the playoffs, but the Jets are a good team, so it might be pretty tough for the Giants. So they only really got, they don't have the best chance at making the playoffs. Commanders in the exact same spot as the Giants. Get a plus win versus the Broncos over the Giants, and then they win the division. But, I mean, they're automatically in the playoffs if they just beat the Broncos. Now, it's going to be a bit tougher for the Eagles, so they can clinch the division if they get a plus win over the Cowboys versus going against the Lions. But they also need a Giants and Commanders loss. But then, if one of those teams win, it's okay, because if just the Rams, the Giants, or Commanders lose, and the Eagles win their game against the Lions and get a plus win over the Cowboys, they will snag the final wild card spot. Same thing here, guys, for the Cowboys. I mean, really, they're going against the Eagles to try to get that final wild card spot, but they need a Rams, Giants, or Commanders loss. And if all those teams win, Eagles and Cowboys are gone. But the Cowboys have to beat Tampa Bay, so it's a little bit of a lower chance to make the playoffs, because Tampa Bay, I would say, is a bit better than the Lions this season. So we'll just see what happens. Bucks clinched their division. All right, now into the AFC. I mean, fairly simple for the Chargers. They win, they're in. But if they get a plus win over the Raiders, they win their division, and they got to beat the Browns, so definitely possible. Same thing goes for the Raiders. They win, they're in. Get a plus win over the Chargers, going against the Buffalo Bills, who are fighting for a playoff spot, and they clinch the division. The Ravens are in a fairly simple spot. They clinch their division with a win versus the Texans. Or even if they do lose, they still clinch the division if the Steelers and Browns lose. Now for the Browns, they can clinch their division if they get a plus win over the Steelers, going against, obviously, the Chargers, and the Ravens lose. But they're going up against a lot of teams for that final wild card spot. So they can still make the playoffs if they get a plus win versus the Chargers. But they have to get that plus win over the Steelers, Bills, Colts, and Texans. So it's not going to be easy. Same predicament for the Steelers. Exactly the same, actually. They can clinch their division if they get a plus win over the Browns. They're going up against the Saints, so it might be a little bit easier for them, actually. But they need the Ravens to lose. And then a plus win versus Saints over Browns, Bills, Colts, and Texans. They're in. I'm not sure how, but the Bengals can still technically make the playoffs. They can clinch the final wild card if they get a plus win over the Patriots. They're going against the Bears. Definitely possible. But they need the Browns, Steelers, Bills, Colts, and Texans to all lose. So they're asking for a lot, but it's not impossible. Next, we got the Dolphins. I mean, all they need to do is win against the Seahawks, and they're in. But the Seahawks are good, so it's going to be a little bit tough. But they can also clinch the division if they do win, and then they get the plus win over the Jets. So a lot on the line for the Dolphins. Exact same scenario for the Jets, but I gave them a 90% chance because they're going against the Giants, and I think they're a little bit easier. But they win, they're in the playoffs. They get a plus win over the Dolphins. They get the division. The Bills can still clinch the division if they win against the Raiders, and then the Dolphins and Jets both lose. They win the division. But if that doesn't happen, they can get a wild card spot with a plus win over the Steelers, Browns, Colts, and Texans. And they're going to have to beat Las Vegas, who's also fighting to win their division. So it's not a really good chance. And then for the Patriots, they need everything to go in their favor to get that final wild card spot. First, they got to get a win versus the Rams. They got to get a plus win, though, over the Bengals. So yeah, that's already going to be hard. And then they need the Browns, Steelers, Colts, Bills, and Texans to all lose. So they're asking for a lot as well. And then for the Titans, it's fairly simple. They clinch their division with a win versus the Panthers. Or they also clinch it if the Colts and Texans lose. So the odds are in their favor. The Colts, they can still clinch their division if they get a plus win over the Texans. And then the Titans lose, but of course they gotta beat the Packers. And if that doesn't work out, they can still clinch a playoff spot with a plus win over the Steelers, Browns, Bills, and Texans. And then the Texans, if Titans lose and they get that plus win over the Colts going against the Ravens, they will win the division, or they can clinch the playoff spot with a plus win over the Steelers, Browns, Bills, and Colts. But the reason they have a rather lower percentage to make the playoffs, Ravens are a good team. I mean, they're trying to clinch their division, so I see it being a bit of a struggle for the Texans here. So yeah, that's how every team can make the playoffs, and we'll see you guys in postseason, but of course we got to go through week 5. So after week 5, it's playoff time, and I'm excited.